In this video, we're going to begin talking about the third stance, which is squatting from an upright position, ready stance, squatting, and then standing back up. Now, much of the information that you need to know, we've covered in the previous videos. In the first stance and second stance, all of that is applicable to and necessary to understand and to have a good working knowledge of it and a good physical understanding of how you use it, how you keep balanced on your feet, how you keep that steady pressure with postural control, and also increase that pressure down into your feet. All of that you need to understand to be able to use that to continue moving from this ready stance down into a deeper squatting down to the floor with your fingertips. And that's the way it is through everything we do. The material in the beginning of these simple stances and movements gives you the information and the working knowledge you need to continue on throughout the program. So to have confidence going from the ready stance down into this third stance, what do you really need to know? Well, it's not what you need to know, it's what you need to be able to get your body to do by holding that pressure stable and relaxing more to be able to keep your body coordinated as you come all the way down. The big important thing here is for those people with a restricted posture, where they're having problems keeping that pressure stable on the feet, you need to keep your feet flat on the floor. Keep that pressure evenly distributed and work on relaxing. There are a few other pointers that I want to go over with you. And one of those is stooping versus squatting. Now, a squat done with the knees and hips, keeping the pressure flat on your feet, and your body essentially just collapses down on itself to lower your body down to the floor. Stooping, however, is done by not using the knees at all or not very much, and just bending over from the waist. You see many people with walkers, they have learned the habit of stooping rather than squatting because of some of the many issues that we've already talked about. The weakening legs, the stiffening up the knees and straightening up the knees, and leaning forward on the walker, becoming dependent on the walker, becoming dependent on this posture and leaning into that walker for some of their support, taking it away from their legs and feet, gets them into this stooping action rather than the squatting action. Now, what is right or wrong with either one? Well, actually, nothing if that's what you want to be doing and it's serving your purpose. You're doing what you want to do. You're staying stable and you're comfortable. Squat if you want, stoop if you want. It really doesn't matter. It's up to the individual person. But for what we're doing, got back on my heels that time, and I have my shoes on today with that curved heel on them, so it's a little bit easier for me to get back there. So I'm having to work a little bit more on my movements today, and that's a good thing. But the people with the walkers that learn to stoop, then when they try to squat, when they try to sit, when they want to do anything that requires that squat, the first thing they do is stoop. And it's a very hard habit to break to get them to stay here and squat first rather than this. To break that bad habit of stooping rather than squatting. So What does the squatting do when you relax the body? That pressure even rather, on the feet as you're squatting down to the floor. Easier to relax into, easier to control, better postural control. Stooping, on the other hand, is done from the waist, so when they're trying to sit, squat, or whatever, they're coming forward here. Now, what happened to the pressure on my feet? It immediately went forward. And that's where they're constantly tipping. Stoopers, people that stoop rather than squat, their most common fall is forward onto their nose, just because of that. Their shoulders come forward, these knees are not flexing or keeping straight, and especially those people that have the weaker legs with the locked knees, they're stuck. Once they get out here, there isn't much you can do about it. Now, who else, shifting just a little bit more, who else has a big problem with this? People that have hyperextending knees. And hyperextending means the knees actually go back further than what they should. They're, because of the weakened legs and their instability, they're locking these knees up and rather abruptly as they're leaning forward this way and pushes back pressure on the knees. So over years, gradually they push those knees back further and further by stretching the ligaments in that joint capsule. And it becomes very significant, and their legs become weaker and weaker. Now, when they want to bring those knees forward, they have to try to get that pressure on the other foot, and then all of a sudden, boom, the knees pop forward, and it's like a tsunami earthquake. Boom! They either fall or catch themselves with their walker, and once those knees start extending like that, they don't stop hyperextending. It's very, very difficult to control them. Most of the people that do that are the younger crowd with Friedreich's ataxia. You'll see quite a few of them like that. And this is an avoidable condition in my book. How can you avoid it? Well, teaching them how not to become a stooper, how to stabilize on their feet, and how to be a squatter, how to keep these legs strong, how to keep these knees pointing forward, even if just a little bit. Let's go back to the stooper without hyperextending knees, getting them off their toes. Of course, that's back in this first stance of learning how to adjust that pressure on flattened feet. Then it's breaking this tendency and starting this tendency. Where else do you see the stooping habit become a problem? Let me grab something here. It's right here with chair. For one, when they're sitting, it'll be this, then they're falling forward. So they're on their walker and they do this, stooping forward. So to get this pressure off the forward part of my feet, I have to get my butt way back there to get the pressure towards the heels, and then they're down. Then they sit. Okay, so what is the problem getting up out of the chair? And I know this is deviating a little bit from where we are on the third stance of squatting. However, it's all mixed together because squatting, sitting, standing up, coming up out of the squat, it's all the same thing. So that stupor what are they going to do when they get up? Okay, we get everything lined up here the best we can, and when they come up, they're out here doing this, and they throw themselves forward. They push themselves forward off the ball and toes of their feet because their shoulders are way out there. So those of you that have a problem with stooping, that's something that you really, really need to work on to become a squatter when a squat is required. And that is starting the movement with knees and hips, which is the way it's supposed to be. And reminder, what is the very first thing you do to begin that squat? Push pressure down on your feet, poof, collapse down into it, relax down into it. So in our natural movement, they're done from down here. But what are the stoopers trying to do? What they do when they want to squat is the first thing that moves is their shoulders. No, not unless you're just moving your shoulders to get the pressure correct on your feet. But otherwise, these shoulders don't move. They stay right here to hold that pressure where it's at. The stooper is they're constantly falling forward. They're constantly tipping forward. So the stiffness and guarding comes back, the fear comes back, and it destroys everything they're trying to do. So for those people that have that problem of stooping rather than squatting, they need to have something in front of them to use that is nice and stable, not just this chair, unless you're stable on your feet and confident. But they need to have something here that they can hold on to. I suggest only having your fingertips on it, so you can't put much pressure into it, because otherwise they'll do this, and then it's a problem coming down, because they're stiff up here, the pressure pushing down the chair, it's keeping them from coming down. So if they only do fingertips, now this is a reminder, I want to stay away from that chair, I want to stay away from that chair. I want to keep the pressure light on my fingers. Okay, now I want my nose to come forward just a little bit. While I'm here with this, what happens with most people who have SEA or any other condition, disorder that leads to a guarded and stiffened posture that leads them to be back on their heel a lot? When they get here and they're doing these squats like on this chair, I don't teach them to stay away from the chair, because they're already staying away from the chair. They're already staying away from that object, because they don't trust anything in their space. And they're done that. It's scary. Someone comes in your space and now you're reacting to it instead of anticipating it and adjusting your posture for what it needs to be. We're fearful of that coming in our space because it's going to cause us problems. But in reality, we're the one that causes ourselves problems. But so here, this is in their personal space. They don't like it there. So if you tell them to stay away from it, they're going to be back here and they're going to push themselves back. So you people that are constantly on your heels, you need to, like everybody, get here on these flattened feet and see your nose come forward towards that chair. Not that you're trying to stoop out there for it, but as you're coming down, your shoulders are coming down and a little bit forward. And that brings you closer to the chair. And you'll notice that especially if you're using a countertop. And what I suggest there is go to the kitchen sink. You can put your hand into, or your fingers into the sink. And then when you're doing that, be about one of your foot lengths with your toes away from the object you're using. And then as you squat down, you're going to be right there. So here, one of my foot lengths is there, right there. Put my toes right there. I'm standing here and I'm squatting, keeping the pressure of my feet flat. There it is right there. And now look where my hands are. They're right there in front of my knees, which tells you my posture is aligned, knees, toes, and shoulders lining up, and my feet are flat on the floor. I feel that. I have all these indications, all these signs and feelings. I'm where I need to be. And the most important is this feels right. I feel comfortable. I'm stable. Exactly where I need. But personal space. You need to let that nose come closer, be where it needs to be. Keep your body in alignment. So those of you with this stooping tendency and or problem, you need to learn how to undo that so you can squat when you want and start initiating your movements from down here instead of up here. And that's really the big caveat. You need to learn how to control that, how to stop doing that so much and start using down here, because when we start transferring that body weight to start movements, if you're still up here throwing your upper body around, you're going to be in serious trouble. And you're going to be stuck and not be able to advance in your movements as you would like because you're not controlling this yet. So it's very, very important to get that stooping habit under control. But again, yes, there are times stooping is just fine. Remember, with all of these things, use a mirror to see what you're doing. Use your arms to feel where you're at. Use that pressure in your feet, flat, push down, relax, come down. Use the arms to know where your alignment is. This is where you want them. This is where they're supposed to be. But what if they're not? Well, wherever they are, it tells you exactly what your alignment is. It tells you exactly what you're doing wrong. And all you have to learn is how to recognize it. And you must have relaxed arms to be able to use them as this guiding indicator. So let me get on the side here. Now, let's pick on the stoopers again. The stooper, when they try to squat, their arms will be out here. So a mild stooper, they'll be here and they'll be here. Well, look how far my arms are still out. The pressure is where? Across my feet. If I keep going, I'm starting to tip forward. So if your arms are hanging loosely, relaxed on front of your knees, that pressure is forward in your feet. And your shoulders, that's telling you your shoulders are too far forward. And or your butt is too far back. And I'm doing that with my knees. I'm pushing my knees back. So now, where's the pressure on my feet? Well, my arms are in front of my knees by this much. So, Doc, from what you said, the pressure must be on the forward part of your feet. No, not in that case. Not in this case. Here, the pressure is forward in my feet. Here, the pressure is in my heels. How did the pressure get in my heels? These knees going back, push the pressure back in my feet. this part of my body weight is pushed back along with the bum. I'm on my heels, see? So it's feeling the pressure, feeling which way your body is moving, being aware of your body position. These arms relaxed. And here you can see when I had my knees back there, they weren't relaxed. Something's wrong down here. So having a video, having somebody video you while you're practicing this so you can look at it immediately after you do it is great. Now, with some of these things that we do, you can use a mirror to see yourself. But there's also times when it's just not practical. You need the video. And most important, you need your common sense of feeling what you feel which way your body's moving, be able to relax, see where your arms are, feel that pressure. Not that difficult. Once you learn how to relax and how to do things just a little bit easier to get out of your head so much. Now I have a question for you. What if my arms, when they're relaxed and I'm squatting, what if they're not in front of my knees? What if they're behind my knees like this? Where's the pressure on my feet now? It's on my heels. With this relaxed posture, you're coming down and these arms are behind your knees. That's telling you you have pressure on your heels. And the further you go down and you keep that pressure back there, you keep your arms back behind your knees, what happens to that pressure in your heels? We covered this before. Test question. It increases. As you're going down, you're increasing that pressure going down into your feet, right? As you're going down with that heel pressure, you're increasing that pressure. You're concentrating that pressure in a smaller area of your foot. And finally, it gets to the point where it's enough that it pushes you back into that falling accident. So watch it again. I can't stay forward because that pressure increases. If you have the ability to stay stable on your feet, you can move your posture any way you want. It doesn't matter how you do it. It just matters that you're stable, you're controlling it, you're doing what you want to do, and you're comfortable doing it. That's what natural ability is about. You have options. So everything I'm showing you here is not how everybody must do it. It is you find your way to be able to do it and do it to the best of your ability. That's all you need. That's all you want. So yes, you can compensate for many things. For example, you can be squatting and push your knees forward and keep your shoulders back and still be stable on your feet. You can do the opposite. You can keep your knees back and shoulders forward and be stable, because all you're doing here is counterbalancing. And see how my shoulders and my hips are just changing places. Not a problem. As long as you're relaxed enough to be able to do that, it's fine. Find your way. Find your comfort level. Now, do you have to always stay on flat feet with any movements you're doing? The answer is no. What I'm showing here is what the people with these restrictive postures and other movement problems need to do to be able to be stable to begin reconnecting with these feelings, these pressures on their feet, and reconnecting with how they relax their body. And then wherever you want to be or need to be, as for where the pressure is located in your feet, it doesn't matter as long as you're controlling it and you're comfortable doing what you want to do. For example, look at people with natural ability when they squat. As they come lower, many times their heels are off the floor because they're squatting on the ball area, the front area of their feet, and they're fine. Well, what are they doing differently than the person that has to be on flat feet? Well, one, they have more dynamic, relaxed postural control, and they are generating a great deal of pressure down into that smaller area of their foot. And that, all of that, is what's holding them stable. That's where you're trying to get back to be able to do what you want to do and how you like to do it for what activity you're doing. So that's a quick introduction to squatting. There is so much more to do because this is a very important stance that you're learning. This is a very important exercise in dynamic posture control to get a better understanding and a better ability of controlling these 3 points, shoulders, hips, and knees, to keep that pressure stable on your feet. It's very, very important because it's going to dictate what you're able to do going forward. You must be able to gain a good understanding and good practical use of these first 3 stances, standing in place, to be doing all these things that we've been covering. Because without them, you won't be able to do very well going forward. These first 3 stances, standing here in place, for many of you, it's difficult and it's very challenging. And it's going to take you a while to get through them, but not all that long if you just stick with the basics and follow me through with this stuff. And learning how to get better control of shoulders, hips, and knees and get them coordinated for this dynamic posture control. And you need that for everything that we're going to be doing. 4th stance, we're going to start transferring this body weight more and standing on 1 foot. We'll get through that and these side strides. Now, that is not going to be all that difficult if you learn these first 3 stances well, because then you're still, aside from standing on 1 foot, to be able to move to the side, which is the more stable way to move on our feet. But when we start the forward strides, now we're going to be moving through the length of our foot, and that's more difficult because it requires that foot be a little bit more supportive in flexing as well, and using the front part of the foot, which a lot of you don't like to do. So just warning you up front that when we get to this 5th stance of this forward stride, that's when many of you are going to have a great deal of difficulty, even those of you that have been doing fairly well with the first 3 and 4. You get to that 5th and you go, oh my God, it's like I don't know anything. Well, hang in there. Yes, you do, and we'll get you through it. It just takes a little bit more ability to be able to control that on that moving through the length of your foot. So that's why I say again, it is imperative that you learn all this stuff from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, then the 4th, and on to the 5th and 6th, to be able to gradually put it together for this increasing ability. Don't try to cut corners unless you have the ability. Some of you out there, you're mild in all of this, and your disability or inability or impairment, or whatever terminology you want to use, and you don't need a lot of instruction to be able to walk better and that type of thing. However, I've worked with hundreds of people around the world of varying abilities, from very mild actually, to significant and quite significant. Some would say severe. Everybody that could stand on their feet and control their posture, everybody, I covered the exact same material. It was in a different order, but we still had to come back to it to cover the basics of why this and why that, to be able to make sense of how we walk better in this case. So even those of you that think, I don't need this stuff in the beginning, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't, depending on what your ability or inability level is. But try not to shy away from it. Skip through it quickly if you want. I don't care. But when you're having some problems out there and you're a little bit unstable, that shows you need to know how to increase that stability so you have better movement, so you'll have better ability of walking and do the other things you want. So let me end this video and get on to that next one here in just a little bit, which is going to be, let's use the wall, the balls, have some fun, and see what we can do to make this squatting stance, and even this rotational movement that we're also going to get into, to make all this stuff a little bit easier to do while having a little bit of fun.